Today we're going into the salt factory near Port Elizabeth in South Africa to have a look at the modern way of producing salt. In the past, salt was made by waiting for water to evaporate from huge salt pans and then gathering the dried salt using bulldozers and trucks. Today's methods are quite different. Let's have a look. The first process is very similar to that used in the old method. Seawater is pumped into huge salt pans. Seawater has 3% salt content, and over a period of 12 to 18 months, depending on the weather patterns in the area and on the seasons, it will concentrate as the sun evaporates the water. As it reaches certain saline conditions, the water is pumped to different pans, to a point where it will be saline saturated at about 23 or 24% salt content. At this point, the salt brine gets pumped to the factory through 12 kilometers of underground pipes. Here the modern method of salt extraction will be seen. The brine is boiled in a large evaporation vessel. By boiling the brine, further evaporation of water occurs. The brine passes through a series of shell and tube heat exchangers to raise the temperature of the liquid. First it passes through a condenser, after which it is pumped through a bank of preheaters. The brine temperature is being increased from an ambient temperature of about 25 degrees Celsius to around 80 or 90 degrees Celsius, just before it enters a large evaporation vessel. A turbo compressor uses a titanium impeller which spins at around 22,000 revs per minute to compress steam. This machine can provide 24 tons of superheated steam each hour. The superheated steam is piped through a heat exchanger which runs through the middle of the evaporation vessel. This causes the brine temperature to increase to 116 degrees Celsius, which is the boiling temperature for saturated brine. Saturated brine has a higher boiling temperature than fresh water, which would boil at 100 degrees centigrade. As the brine boils, water evaporates from it, leaving a more concentrated brine liquid. As the brine oversaturates, salt crystals begin to form in the evaporator. Once those salt crystals reach a particular size, they will have enough gravimetric mass to drop into what's known as a salt leg at the bottom of the machine as a 50% water and 50% salt slurry. The salt slurry is pumped into a centrifuge where a further dewatering process takes place and the remainder of the water is removed. As the inside of the centrifuge rotates at high speed, the water is flung out and pure salt with a moisture content of about 3% remains. So the centrifuge takes the water content in the slurry down from 30 or 40% to about 3%. The salt drops down into the fluid bed dryer. In the fluid bed dryer, hot air is blown through the inside of the machine, and the moisture content of the salt is further reduced to about 0.05%. The salt is cooled at the end of the process, and iodine and a free flow additive are added. The salt is stored in silos from where it's fed to the packing area. In the modern packaging plant, the salt is put into 25 kilogram, 1 kilogram, or 500 gram packets. These machines are known as form, fill, and seal machines, as the packets that hold the salt are formed, filled, and sealed in one automated process. The packs are put onto pallets by hand and are taken to a stretch wrapping machine to be encased in plastic. This factory produces around 100 tons of salt every day. The pallets are stored in a huge warehouse to await transportation to the shops. While the product is still derived from seawater, this method of production produces salt that is absolutely pure and clean. The only byproduct of the process is fresh water, which is bottled in another section of the factory.